Incoming transmission.
Chunk Jack, are you aware you've missed your training now for 2 months? If you don't attend the next session, we'll revoke your captain's license.
Annoying.
Welcome to class. Today's topic: Auteurs are a dying breed in gaming. An auteur is a term used commonly in the film industry to define a singular director's work. Auteurs are unique in that their films have particular commonalities that make a director's work distinguishable. For example, Wes Anderson has a very unique style and look to his films, and so could be called an auteur of film. Others include Scorsese, Tarantino, Spielberg. If you can identify the characteristics that make a Wes Anderson film a Wes Anderson film, such as unique color palettes, commonly used top-down shots over a desk, centered framing, quirky characters, and dialogue, then you have yourself an auteur. The question is, do video games have auteurs? And if so, who are they? Hideo Kojima has been called an influential auteur of video games. His style is unique enough to be identified as its own genre. We know what a Kojima game is at this point: a game with overly complex narratives and metaphors that speak to the genre of video games, politics, and war, to name a few. Kojima is approaching 60 years old, and in his wake, who are the other auteurs of video games? The list seems strikingly small. There's the It Takes Two game director, Joseph Fares.
Fuck the Oscars, you know? Fuck the Oscars! Fuck you! I'll tell you!
Who seems to have found a niche in keeping the local couch co-op genre alive. There's the director of the Nier series, Yoko Taro, who chooses to wear a mask in PR settings. There's Neil Druckmann, who directed The Last of Us. And I know there are more, maybe even many more, but I don't know them, and that's my point. Outside of Kojima, who is the Spielberg of video games? Does the medium need auteurs, or are auteurs a dying breed across all mediums? In a time when games as a service leads the market and Palworld dominates headlines, a discussion has come up regarding gaming. Are games becoming a hollow capitalist venture solely aimed at creating systems that are designed to squeeze as many dollars as it can out of the consumer? Or is the art of gaming still alive in AAA games? Auteurs are artists. They bring forth their own styles that mold mediums and push it forward. They have a story to tell, a lesson to teach. They fill their projects with soul and personal experiences. These works of art speak to consumers. They give something to be gained by having experienced their work. Kojima games might make someone scratch their head, but you cannot deny that something is trying to be communicated from one artist to an audience. In Death Stranding, one of the more unconventional mainstream video games today, more often than not, I was left wondering, what is happening in this story? Where is this world? Where am I? But on the other hand, I also recognized the intended sense of the echoes of community in a world now shattered and separated. As I built structures that other real-life players could use in their own games and then be given a like, I felt connected even in a world that is isolating. When I made Sam scream into the vast landscape and could hear another player in their own game respond in kind, I felt it again.
Hey!
This game was trying to communicate something to me, something real, something artful. I'm not saying the game is good or bad. What I am saying is that this game is a work of art that, on top of a team of developers and actors and other various positions, stands a singular creative director sharing his vision and message. This is the importance of auteurs. They breathe life into their work, and without them, we're left with hollow husks. Games as a service and games made by big teams all have directors. But these directors answer to publishers and corporate leaders in a way that auteurs don't have to. Many of these games are fun and can be of value to players, but the premise of this lesson is that if we're looking for more soul, more life in games, then we need to support the auteur, the indie developer who's putting their soul into a message, into a game, to express something to us, the player. And maybe if we vote well enough with our money, these corporate suits might decide to support the endangered auteur.
Yoko Taro, a game director, reaching auteur status gives the gaming industry something more, a unique personality. Like Tarantino's Coke-like energy, Hitchcock's British charm and mysterious demeanor, Yoko Taro gives us a giant moon helmet, blunt responses in interviews, and malicious compliance to gaming publishers. In every interview and public appearance, he wears this mask because, as he says, he does not want to be photographed, and game directors are actually boring outside of their work. But Yoko Taro is the opposite of boring. He's an auteur who, like Hitchcock, has made himself a personality that bolsters his games and gives an air of artistry over the title game director, even if at times it borders on parody. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, movies were struggling to find a place in the world of art. People didn't know if these moving pictures were toys, spectacle, or something else. It took the work of Georges Méliès and Sergei Eisenstein to help the world see that movies are something more, and paved the way for one of the first big personalities to push the medium even further, Orson Welles. Big personalities in the directing space help to identify the soul of a piece of art, and Yoko Taro is doing his part intentionally or not, but putting a big moon mask on his head. Georges Méliès would be so proud. So to all the blunt truths, awkward interviews, and wild PR stints, we at Chunkjack salute you, Yoko Taro. Keep on keeping on.
On sites like Reddit and apps like Steam, even videos on YouTube, I've noticed a peculiar trend. From my side of the field, gamers are rooting for publishers and game industry corporations like some would a sports team. I know this is nothing new, especially when you have a manufactured console war, but what I find weird are the stats following. What I mean is that people are looking at units sold, player counts, and reviews like scores on a scoreboard, and gamers seem to have biases based on their favorite corporations. Like, for example, a Capcom game. If there's a player who, for whatever reason, put on the Capcom jersey, they defend Capcom's choices regardless of the actual consequences of their design and business decisions. If Capcom releases a game with microtransactions, for example, a decidedly L for the company, then the Capcom fan might respond with, "The company that gave us Resident Evil 4 Remake shouldn't be judged on meaningless microtransactions because look how good this game is." This is an interesting reaction that spans not just video games, but many other aspects of life, like politics, for example. But it seems strange to me that someone would put on a jersey for a corporation and not judge the products individually based on output. Games are meant to entertain, to teach, to be an art. Out of all the aspects of a game to root for, why would it be the people whose sole mission is to extract as much money from the player? On a console level, I can squint my mind's eye and see the rationale of, well, maybe people only have so much money to spend on hardware, and so whatever they've chosen and locked themselves into, it makes sense that they would want that ecosystem to succeed. And when it comes to publishers, they too seem to have picked a side in terms of hardware. Square Enix, for example, seemingly releases more games for PlayStation than on Xbox. And Microsoft has been gobbling up as many studios as they can to put under their ecosystem. So, is it all just an extension of this weird console war? Has the hardware ecosystem produced fans of the actual corporations to aspects that are getting further and further away from the hardware? It's my guess that in a few decades, it won't matter what gaming hardware the player has. Games will be released to as wide an audience as possible, with Sony and Microsoft bidding for subscription fees rather than console sales. Who knows where Nintendo wants to go? In that case, will the echoes of the console wars reverberate to publishers? Instead of PlayStation fanboys, will we have Squareheads and Capcomites? I think it would be more fruitful to root for the directors, the actors, the actual developers, rather than the publisher. This has been a pro-auteur message paid for by the Chunk Jack Association.
I'm in the middle of my Final Fantasy Rebirth playthrough and suddenly a familiar voice penetrates the speakers.
Allow me to welcome you to my desert oasis, Cloud.
Welcome.
Cloud, right?
Is that Troy Baker? And it was Troy Baker, playing a seedy crime lord with gold teeth and the lowest V-neck I've seen in the game so far. Troy Baker has certainly made a name for himself in the video game industry as a voice actor, becoming maybe the Tom Cruise of video game voice actors in that people know his name, know his voice, and know his past performances.
The name's Higgs, the particle of God that permeates all existence.
Actors in video games are interesting compared to actors in movies, especially if you consider main characters. Both movies and video games attempt to put you, the viewer, in the place of a main character. Filmmakers want you to connect with the main character, understand motivations, follow along, and understand their decisions. In narrative-driven video games, all of that is the same, except that you, the viewer, are also able to control the main character, to make decisions for the main character, and to pull the strings of the puppet that the voice actor gives a voice to. In a video game, you are connected to the main character more than just a passive sit here and put your seatbelt on capacity. You are given the wheel, kind of. Or so the game would make you believe. When we play games, we say, I beat the boss, or I can't get past this level, or I made that choice. But who are you in relation to the character? Voice actors in games have a unique task of not only bringing characters to life and giving the character personality, they also have to allow space for the player to pull the strings, make decisions, and feel as if they are the character they are controlling. Troy Baker's voice is our voice when he talks to Ellie. His decisions to kill are our decisions to kill in BioShock Infinite. And so for me personally, I have not committed to memory the names of very many voice actors in gaming because they play an even more passive role to the movie star. However, I feel like that is changing thanks in part to the Game Awards. We now have awards for best actors in video games, and we know the name Christopher Judge, Matt Mercer, and from time to time even the Hollywood movie star leaves their throne to join us gamers below. These performances should be celebrated, and like Auteurs, we should know the names of the actors, because they not only bring to life these puppets, they allow us the space to sit there with them and feel as though we are the characters they give voices to, which is a unique experience to video games. I've been making videos for over 10 years. In all that time, in my opinion, I have not expressed a singular artistic vision through video. I'm not an auteur. I am more a compiler, a video DJ, a remixer. I take elements from other aspects of videos and combine them to create my quote-unquote own. I didn't start that way though. I started trying to make short films and then documentaries. Now I've found myself in this compiler position, and I don't hate it. That's not to say I'm not trying to give these videos a style or some artistry, but if I have any talent as a video creator, I'd say most of it lies in editing. So I like taking elements from other videos, rearranging them to a new beat, and attempting to make something new. And from this perspective, I want to be transparent and say that I am using and plan to continue using AI tools in order to do this. I'm more creating scrapbooks or remixed albums than films or videos anyways. If I rip a YouTube video to extract one shot or a couple of seconds of footage, I'm not seeing much difference than prompting an AI to attempt to do the same. I then take some of that AI generated media and I edit it to something I find interesting. I will not use AI for any writing, but other elements such as voice recording or art or video, I'm going to experiment with. As of this moment though, I'm just using this AI art as building blocks. Like Sergei Eisenstein might argue, the shot is just the raw material, and it's through editing that we come to give that raw material form. I mean, this is pretty reductive, but it's how I'm thinking about it. All that is to say, in terms of the themes for this video, I would not call myself an auteur of YouTube. Some others are taking up that mantle in my estimation. For example, we know what a Casey Neistat video looks like, what his style is aesthetically and thematically, so I might call him an auteur of YouTube. In the video game space, Nakey Jakey has carved out his own unique style with his quips and puns in his writing, to his now taking his yoga ball into various interesting locations to record voiceovers. And Tim Rogers is another one who I think has achieved auteur status, who seemingly is now making more feature-length video game review films than YouTube videos. And so to bring this home, I feel more like a DJ than I do an auteur, but auteurs are cool and important for retaining the soul of an artful medium, and in the blockbuster AAA gaming space, might be becoming a dying breed.